Disclaimer, the views of the guests on the show are not necessarily the views of the host of the Work With Me podcast. Everything you need to discuss from the employee-employer side come to life on the Work With Me podcast. Interact with us at workwithmepodcast.com. Now live on tape from outside New York City and Philadelphia is Roos and Stei. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep that music for the opener, Mark. I love it. It's getting me all pumped up. You pumped up, Lorindy? Great. Hey, it's the Work With Me podcast. How you doing, everybody? Stei, Lorindy, Roos. We got an incredible show for you. Also, I want to take a second and thank our previous guests who've really helped us launch this. That'd be Carrie Leo, Keith Boone, and my good friend Zach Martin. Also, thanks to Nicole, who helps us behind the scenes. Everything from getting the podcast online to helping with emails and stuff. So thanks, Nicole. And we've got a killer show for you today. I got in touch with somebody who he's a best-selling New York Times writer. And he's dabbled a little bit in film and television. This guy has done it all. Interesting life story. Yet, when you Google this guy's name, he is being completely 100% trash. This guy must have lost so much business by the horrible reputation by the people on the internet, as they say. His name is Wid Bastian. I'm sure I screwed it up, but not only are we going to talk about his impressive career, he's given me the green light to talk about what happened. So we're going to dig deep in that. So Wid's going to be with us calling in from Utah in just a little bit. And because of his story, I wanted to talk about my own previous story in the past with reputation and the internet. Now, my situation is not even 1 millionth as bad as his is, but might as well share. Now, the key to telling this story is I'm going to take a quick look at my friends list on Facebook. By the time I'm done doing this, I'm sure 20 or 30 of them will be gone for sharing this story, but what the heck, I got the podcast and I got to use it. God, you got to do the math now. Maybe somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago, I'm working my second on-air radio gig. I was working in Long Island, commuting to New York on the weekends, and I got something a lot closer. And I loved this gig. I had a great time. I liked everybody I worked with for the most part. And at first, they were sort of shuffling around where I was going to be. And then I got the opportunity to host Saturday nights every week. And Saturday nights in radio at that time, fantastic time. You got people going out. You got people with parties going on. They have requests. They want to tell you about their wild times. And me, that's the type of radio I like doing. I like putting people in the air. And kind of like this, what we do now, I like to share stories as well. So I'm doing this Saturday night show for a few years. Successful. We're doing well. We're having fun. I'm getting my name out there in this sort of small to medium-sized market. But it was a lot of fun. And things are just going really well. And I like everybody I work with, too. A lot of fun. Little did I know that another disc jockey at the radio station, not only did he not like me, but I know people hate when I say this, I'd like to say he became a little obsessed with me. And this is why I say that. And the story will tell. I had no idea until later that he wanted to do this Saturday night shift. And meanwhile, I didn't campaign for this or lobby for this. They gave it to me. It's like any job. You want to take this? We want you on this shift. Fine, I'll take it. So I think he had a little bit of resentment towards me or whatever. But we were very cordial. I would have never known there was any bad blood between us. And so one day, and the one problem with him was, I'm all over the place, and I'm sorry. It's the Work With Me podcast, by the way. Welcome. He liked to complain a lot. And I know, you're listening to my opening spiel every week. You're like, who are you to judge? True. But I never complained about being there. I loved working at this radio station. And he was always negative about everybody that was on the air, how he deserved this, he was better than this, blah, 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 blah. So. One day, one of our competitor radio stations that we were competing with had an opening. And I said to another DJ in private, you know what? This guy over here who's not happy here, he should apply there. He might be happy there. About a week later, I'm in the studio, and he looks at me and goes, hey, Bob. I go, uh-huh. He goes, do me a favor. Don't talk about me and what I want to do on the air here. And I'm like, excuse me? And he said, so-and-so told me that I should apply for this job over here. And I said, well, I don't think it was an insult. You're not very happy here. You're always complaining, and that's a good opportunity for you. He goes, I'm not unhappy. I don't want to go there. Fine. We never talked about it again. End of story, right? A few months later, guess what? He quits our radio station. He's so unhappy, he quits. Where does he go? To the other radio station. Ha! My psychic or what? And it wasn't an on-air gig either. He was doing stuff off air. I don't know what he was doing. Don't know, don't care. Now, the show, how I had no bad feelings towards this guy, I sent him the nicest email when I found that he was leaving us. And I wrote something, I'm going to paraphrase it, because I don't remember how I wrote it exactly, like, change is tough, change is really hard, but it takes a lot of guts to make a change like you did. I wish you well. And he got back to me like, that was really kind of you, and I wish you and your family well as well. Very cordial. Everything's great. Now, this is the time before social media was really kicking in. Facebook wasn't around yet. I think we're just about to launch MySpace. Don't you miss MySpace? Had great songs, great colors. I do miss that page, but there was really no social media outlet. So we're in this weird phase where everything on the internet to talk about is on message boards. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you're too young, and they still exist, as instead of going onto Facebook or Twitter or whatever you use to rant and rave about something, you would go onto a message board on a topic you're interested in, like sports or politics or radio, and you would voice your opinion, and you never had to use your real name either, so you could be a coward behind a keyboard. After my first week at this radio station, and yes, we all did read those message boards in a day. I'm the first to admit I read them. A guy kept posting about me, and very positive too. You know, hey, the new guy this radio station brought in, I like him. And he kept every few weeks talking about, he did this week, which was funny, I like him. One day, I'm just, doing my work, looking on the internet, and there's a posting from him saying, hey, Bob Stei, what's the title? So I said, what'd I do now? And he wrote, Bob Stei is an excellent part-timer who has experience in, I think he said, Baltimore and Philadelphia. He deserves a full-time gig. First of all, it was very nice. Secondly, I don't know this guy. I don't know his real name, so I didn't tell this guy to post it. So, you always get that, well, did you write that, Bob? No. And I never, at that time, was on the air in Baltimore or Philly. I ended up going on the air in Philadelphia for a while, but I don't know how we found that information about me, but whatever. Nice thing. Within minutes, my phone's blowing up with people telling me, dude, you got to go to this radio message board. I said, all right. There's a guy trashing me. And it started off real calm with, are you kidding me? Have you actually heard the guy on the radio? Maybe you would be one of his 8-minute phone calls, blah, blah, blah. He talks about his family. He talks about he stinks, blah, blah, blah. All right, it happens. And you got to really just, blow the stuff off, shake it off. It's not a big deal, huh? As the day goes on, it keeps continuing. Thread after thread after thread. How I am the worst person in the world. I am this ego. I have a lisp. I don't belong on the radio. I'm too small market. They should kick me off. I talk too much. And that's why I have a podcast now. And it started to hurt. We're human beings. It really hurt. And I'm calling friends of mine. I'm calling my family like, what the hell? And meanwhile, it's all people using fake names. All these keyboard cowards, whatever you want to call them. So I'm getting really upset during the day about it. And unfortunately, I keep looking at it. And then some of my listeners start defending me, and then people start attacking them, and they're really attacking me. So I will admit, I went to the message board people who ran the website and said, hey, can you take this off, please? I don't need to read this. And they refused to, sorry you had to read this. It's, everybody's going to right to speak. I wouldn't worry about it. And I'm getting really mad at this point because it's continuing. And I'm not a bigger man at that point who could just walk away and ignore it, or they say all publicity is good publicity, but no, I kept going on it. And then something caught my eye. The first person that was trashing me, the name he used looked familiar to me. And it was something really stupid, like I eat kitty litter or something. Some ironic hipster stupid doofus thing he did. So I'm like, why do I know that phrase? So because I'm so brilliant and because I'm an internet hoarder, I go to my personal email account and I'm searching my emails and I put that in there because I think it rings a bell to me. Guess what? That is the top. That's like before the at Hotmail or Hot Gmail or whatever. That's the internet name of the guy who I was talking about, who was mad that I suggested he go to our radio station, who wanted my shift and went to that station. So he's at this station as a coward, trashing me. I get furious, and I'm calling. You know, remember, I called my friend Zach. I'm calling everyone like, "What the hell do I do now?" And everyone's just saying, "You know what? Chill out, not a big deal." Or some people tell me, call his program director, say, "Can you tell him to get back to work and stop playing on the internet?" I made the mistake then of telling some of my listeners who reached out to me, I know who this is. He's a coworker, a former coworker. He's jealous. He's a little bit obsessed with me, and he's at another station now. So they start attacking him, but I never told them who it was. So as they're attacking him like, we know who you are, I don't know why they said that, you work at another station, we're going to expose you. Suddenly he's like posting, hey, wait, guys. No need to do that. All I said was, I don't like Bob on the air. I'm sure many people do. And starts changing his tone. And this got really ugly where I would go back to the station and people would be like, yeah, we heard about this. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And somebody actually said to me, you know what? I think he wants to fight with you. So why don't you go in there and fight? And you guys could have an internet war. And I'm like, no. I have a kid of my own. I had one kid at that point, I believe. I don't have time to be somebody else's parent right now and give attention. So as my listeners started attacking him, and he was afraid that he was going to be, revealed for the fraud that he is, he posted the generic apology. I want to apologize for what I said to Mr. Stei. I was in a bad mood and maybe I shouldn't post. I'll go on to other topics. Meanwhile, the thread never left. And if you Google my name enough, it still shows up. What a coward. So, I know what it's like to have the internet be your enemy. And this was before Facebook and Twitter and all these things ruined other people's lives. Heck, if you read any news story any day, somebody is losing their job because of something stupid they posted. Now, what this guy Wid, who's about to come on the air with us, went through, I'm not even in the same league of what they did to him. I mean, wait till you hear what happened to this guy, and let's talk a little bit about how this internet, this thing we're all addicted to, it could ruin your reputation. All right. Well, Larindy, I'm excited about this guest today. His name is Wid Bastian. I hope I pronounced it right. He'll correct me if I didn't. He's calling in from Utah. Now, he has published books. He has wrote for television, for films. And if you listen to my opening speech today, he's also had some problems with the internet and people ruining his reputation. So we have a lot to talk to him about. Did I say your name right, Wid?
Yeah, Wid Bastian, Bob. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We have so much to get to, and I see you grew up in one of my favorite places in the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. What's it like growing up in Las Vegas?
Well, I grew up there in the 60s and 70s. So the town that I grew up in just doesn't exist anymore, Bob. It's gone. I mean, I think there was roughly now a couple 100,000 people in Las Vegas when I grew up. And now, what is it, 2 million? So I loved growing up there. It was wonderful, but these days it's a completely different place. I still have lots of friends there, but completely different now.
Now, as I've mentioned, and we're going to get more into it, you've had success not only in writing, big time writing, television, movies. How did you start and build your career?
A few years ago, I guess it's more than a few years ago now, I just decided that my creative impulses needed to be fed, that's really what made me happy. So I started writing, and I wrote a book that actually was never published called The Club. But I had a good friend in business who, his name is Alan. I think he's deceased now, God bless him. But he was a lawyer. He was actually the lawyer for the Bee Gees and a promoter for the Bee Gees back in the 70s. I did a lot of other things. So I sent him the book, and I said, look, I want your honest opinion. Am I wasting my time? Is this a hobby? And he sent me back a note I'll never forget saying, this is what you should be doing with your life. This is very good. So I never published that book, by the way, but that's kind of how I decided, then, and got some feedback that I actually had some talent.
Well, I mean, you've had long-lasting success, as I mentioned, not just in books, but television and film. What do you think people would most know you from?
Well, with television and film, and kind of due to the next topic we're going to discuss, I'm not going to get into a lot of specifics there, but I've written a lot of pilots. Kind of going over the past couple of years, we had a pilot that got all the way to the end with Animal Planet. I've had pilots within the past 2 years. One got all the way with A&E. But I enjoy writing for film. I've never had a screenplay of my own made. So for me, my writing career has mostly been as a ghostwriter and as under my own name, but more novels than screenplays and film for sure. And also, in fairness, ebooks, nonfiction stuff, biographies.
I got caught up, quite honestly, in that part of the story because I actually spent some time doing some fundraising for film and television, and spent about 16 crazy months of my consulting career really trying to understand those nuances, and met some of the most incredible, talented people in my career. And at the same time, at that time, being in a structure that seemed like it was rolling boulders uphill, moving through molasses, and not really feeling like at the time that I got to the end of the road or the goal was met. So I just always have such great reverence and applause for people like yourself who are in the business of telling other people's stories, because it really truly is a gift. And so maybe you can just tell me a little bit more about, tell us a little bit more about how that became a part of your life. And we're going to get into some of the other things, but why
Sure.
that? How did that come up for you?
Sure. This is years ago now. I'm not I don't do it this way anymore, so I don't know if this same structure still exists. But in 2012, 13, 14, there were places you could go out just to be a ghostwriter, to put yourself out there and say, hey, for a fee, I'll write a book for you. I did a few that way, both nonfiction and fiction. And then as I became a little more well-known, I had people reaching out to me, and it just kind of branched out from there. But if you're asking how I got started in that, that is pretty much how I got started in that, through those sites. I assume that stuff still exists, but I don't do that anymore, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, we have enough topic for an additional conversation at some time about the world of entertainment and how how all the characters and how we show up as characters in that world. It's interesting.
Sure. Yeah, love to.
That'd be great. So, but let's move to a little bit different area of discussion. So you've lived in Utah for a while now. I don't know if Bob shared with you that I actually raised my children in Utah and spent 16 years of my adult life there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So I raised my children primarily in Davis County. Prior to moving to New York 10 years ago, I guess 11 years ago now, actually, we lived in Bountiful. So it's a different culture than Las Vegas for sure. So has it been an adjustment for you moving into Utah, and how's that experience been for you?
Both of my parents, so both sides of my family, were, if you go back, were Mormon pioneers.
Oh, wow.
My father and mother are both from Sevier County, which is in central Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I was not raised here. My father was an engineer, and he was also associated with the military in a lot of ways. So we moved around a lot until we kind of settled in Vegas. But many, many years ago, I converted to Greek Orthodoxy. I'm a Greek Orthodox person. So I know all about the culture. I love living here. I know where you lived in Bountiful. I drive through there all the time. I live north of there in Cache County.
Okay. You're in
up near Utah State University, where that's my alma mater.
Oh, okay. So you're an Aggie.
I'm an Aggie. I met my wife, back in the late 1970s, when we were just kids, and we had a college thing, and then we went our separate ways, and then decades later we met and go, gosh, we were crazy not to get married back then. So we got married, and we're very happy, and she's a school teacher here in Cache County.
Oh, fantastic. I also, when I first moved to Utah, I actually moved to Logan. My husband at the time was managing a restaurant there. So Logan was my first Utah stop. So.
It's a lovely place. It's growing too fast for all of us that live here. It hasn't slowed down in this current pandemic really at all. I mean, they're still building houses like crazy, and yeah, it's a lovely place. Particularly this time of year, you can't get better weather, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then you have great canyons that you can hike, fish, camp, just north of Logan as well. So really,
yeah, if you're into the outdoors, living in northern Utah is a dream. You can do just about anything you want to do.
Right. Now, you said you converted to Greek Orthodoxy. I also have had a very circuitous spiritual journey, which we won't go into because this podcast isn't about me today. But just curious about a little bit of your journey. And, were you raised in a religious home? Kind of what was your journey that landed you in the Greek Orthodox faith?
I was not raised in a religious home. Just going through the travails of life. Again, part of this will get into what we talk about later, but I realized that, spiritually I was lacking, and I became friends with some Greek Orthodox people. One thing led to another. And, while I'm like St. Paul, chief among sinners for sure, I have a lot of great Greek Orthodox friends, and I work closely on creative projects with a couple of Greek Orthodox people, some in Africa, some in Australia, some here. But I came to Greek Orthodoxy kind of later in life searching. But I'm very comfortable living here. In fact, in Salt Lake City, there's a large Greek Orthodox presence. There's been a Greek Orthodox church there for 150 plus years. So, yeah.
Yes, I have a good friend that when I was still in corporate, he was the senior vice president of development, Greek Orthodox. And then I also have, just recently, our consulting company has become associated with an international organization and a woman who started a nonprofit called Philo for Thought, which is a Greek organization that mentors other youth, established Greek professionals mentor younger Greek professionals. And so it's been a really great experience for us to connect with them and see how they're bringing the DNA of who they are and their beliefs and really making a great impact in the world on so many levels, culturally, business-wise, personally. So I keep coming back to this home point, I guess. So I always find that interesting. So another question for you: as you were growing up, did you have role models that you looked up to that, when you look back, say they certainly were influential in who I am today?
Oh, no doubt. The only thing I ever wanted to be until I was about 17 years old was a Major League Baseball pitcher. But unfortunately, I had neither the talent nor the eyesight to get past the high school level.
You got the name for it, though.
I do, yeah. I'm a rabid Dodger fan, so I'm obviously just excited as heck about, in a few days we'll actually be able to watch baseball again, if only on TV. But I absolutely idolize people like Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale. Later when I was a teenager, Garvey, Shea, Lopes, Russell, all those teams, Fernando Valenzuela. So I looked up to a lot of them as a kid. As I became an adult, I learned more about the story of Jackie Robinson, and he is probably one of my biggest heroes. Him, Martin Luther King, a guy who's living, who I work with, Father Themistocles in Africa is another hero of mine. But growing up, I was baseball, 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 and then I had to kind of just change all that when I realized, hey, not going to happen for you. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right. Well, now it's time to take a big sip of water and get ready. Now, I was telling Lorindy this before, and in my opening, people heard a little bit about this. Wid and I connected a few weeks ago to talk about some type of business deal together. And what I do every time somebody I haven't met personally yet is I Google them. Now, when I Googled him, what came up, and we're going to get into it, was not pretty. I'm not going to get into it. I'll even advise you doing it or whatever. Before we get into this, and we're going to let you clear your name with, Lorindy, how often in your travels, your careers, when it's either a new business client or a personal client, do you just go to the internet and find out stuff about them?
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
So, Wid, basically, what happened?
Well, in a nutshell, here's what happened. From 2014 until the end of last year, end of 19, I owned a company called Genius Media. We promoted and published ebooks, paperbacks for that matter. We promoted and put forward television and film projects. We were a boutique media company. I made two critical mistakes, and this is on me, and I've never said otherwise to anyone. I got over leveraged with the wrong lenders, sky high interest rates. It was way too risky. That's my fault. That was my decision. Then I had a film agent that was a friend of mine, but disappeared on me. When those two things happened, I really had nowhere else to go. I had to shut it down. When I shut it down, and at the time this shocked me. I guess I'm over the shock now. As 8-9 months ago. Some people I was working with on book projects went ballistic. I mean, I still can't believe some of the things they said, but that created, a firestorm on the internet in terms of my reputation. The allegation that I ripped anybody off is completely false. Not only is it false, I've recently been through a process where I had to liquidate that company, where when you go through a bankruptcy process, when you have a trustee involved, you have to disclose everything to them, all your contracts, you're deposed, you go through it. I went through that whole process, and all my debts were discharged. Anyone that knows any things about that process, that should be the end of the conversation. You don't get debts discharged if you've ripped people off. It doesn't happen. So that's how that all came about. Have I been active in trying to go after individuals and shut them down? No. Have my attorneys sent messages to certain people? Yes. But I really haven't gone negative like that. I've been way too busy working, for one thing, but the time has come now to set the record straight. So ask me whatever questions you want, but that's the basic scenario right there.
Now, I don't know if it was one person or a series of people, but did you ever, whether it be a phone call or email or text, reach out to these people? I'm like, dude, what the heck? I'm right here.
Absolutely. No, absolutely I did. The main thrust of all of that stuff is this. I had two projects that were very successful, and I'll explain. One was a medical thriller anthology kind of compilation called Do No Harm, and another one was a science fiction anthology called Galaxia. Some of the top authors, indie authors, these aren't people that write for major houses, they're big indie authors, were involved in those projects. They wanted to become USA Today best-selling authors. I charged them a fee of $750 per author to put all that together, to manage it, to run it, and it was successful. I don't have it right in front of me, but something like 30 authors, give or take one or two, became USA Today best-selling authors. When my company disintegrated, the reasons I've explained, I had to resolve all that. I had to live by the terms in those contracts. the terms in those contracts, my hands were tied by them, as was anybody else's. I couldn't vary from that. I didn't. But they felt, oh my gosh, you've ripped us off, you've done this, you've done that. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Read the contract. They weren't interested in that. They were interested in only trashing me. But again, to be fair, a minority of those authors were involved in that, and a small minority went insane. I don't know why to this day.
Now, you had mentioned you got legal assistance, and on a technical thing, were you able to or attempt to call, whether it be Google or whatever, to get these posts down to clear your name?
No, I know that that's theoretically possible, and all I can say on that is this, that some of that is in progress now. But at the time, and I believe I sent this to you, Bob, I sent out a detailed memo saying, look, here's what happened. Here's the contract. Here's how it works. Falls on deaf ears. Again, you could spend your time dealing with all this negative stuff, and I should spend some time on it, and I am. But I was much more interested in getting all of that resolved and moving on. But that's where it is. That's why it happened. I have no idea. I guess it's kind of in our culture now, isn't it? This whole mob mentality, jump on people. You know, who cares about what the facts are? But if I have a point of view, I just want to jump on somebody. I'm not like that. I don't like airing dirty laundry in public. Maybe I'm old school.
You know, it's interesting, Wid, you talk about your reputation, and it sounds like other people had an opinion about their own reputation or what they expected. And so I'd like to just explore with you a little bit more, you know, what is that about us as humans, that we want what we want and we're just going to get what we want, however we get it, irrespective of how it affects other people? What is that about our humanness that makes that so prevalent?
Well, I don't want to give the impression that I'm blameless in terms of the way that I communicated with people or the way that I handled the entire matter. That would be not true. Mm-hmm. I was in a bad place trying to save the company that and all the dreams that I had built for myself and for some key clients who you've never heard from that were truly hurt by this. So I didn't communicate as well as I could have. I didn't handle things as well as I could have. But there's a huge difference between that and ripping people off, which is completely untrue. It just didn't happen. Why are we engaged in this cultural stuff today? Why do we gang up on people? Is it a human thing? I don't know. I don't do that. I wasn't raised that way. That's not in my DNA. Not that I don't fight back, but posting stuff that you don't know anything about online, that just to trash someone, you have to tell me why people do that, man. I don't do it. I refuse to do it. I will defend myself, and I should have done a better job of that. Mm-hmm. Point. But, you know, as I've expressed this to Bob, the vast majority of people that know me saw through this horse manure instantly. And we're like, hey, don't let that stop you from helping me, okay? And I'm like, sure. So it's not like I had nothing to do. And when you're taking down a company, even a small one like Genius Media, you have a lot of time you have to spend with your attorney, with getting the documents correct, with making sure that everything's done right. And that really occupied my time. Mm-hmm. The projects I had February through April. So just now I'm kind of coming out of this and going, you know what? The time's come to really set the record straight.
Right. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of that journey for you. It reminds me, several years ago, my husband and I had invested in a pizzeria, and we had done all the analysis, all of the research, and it, by all intents and purposes, was going to be very successful. Turns out it wasn't. And again, I don't want to get into all the wheres and whys, but I remember reaching out to a woman that I trust. She's still on my speed dial, that when I find myself in situations that I'm coming to understand or have really been put in my path to be a life lesson, I would say things that show up as you're either a blessing or a lesson. So which one is it? And I remember calling her, and I was in LA at the time, so it was 6 a.m. LA time, but I just was so in such a state about this whole thing. And I owed some people some money because I had borrowed some money. I had some investors who had invested some money, and I was in a zero-sum win situation. And I remember her saying to me, Lorendi, the only responsibility you have is to take responsibility for your piece and let people know what you can do and what you can't do. And then from there, you have to move on, because otherwise your ego will spend a lot of time trying to keep you in the soup of the mess. And that's not where the healing lies. That's not where the opportunity lies. And I'll never forget leaving that conversation with such relief. And within just a couple of days, I made one of the toughest phone calls of my life. And it was to let one of the people know who I had borrowed some money from, that I wasn't going to be able to pay it back. I would pay it back at some point. And it was one of the most healing conversations that I had. And again, won't get into that, but just that piece of knowing where my responsibility was and is, and what I can do and what I can't do. And then I've done my part. And I think that in the current condition of where things are today, we could use some of that wisdom from my dear friend. Her name is Cookie. We can use Cookie's wisdom, that know where your responsibility is and what you need to take responsibility for, and then allow others to take responsibility for themselves, because on the other side of the table is also a lesson or a blessing for them. When I try to own the whole table, that's when I get myself in a mess.
No, that's really wise. In my situation, and this is really I think the crux of it, from anyone looking on the outside in and going, what the heck's going on here? If you post, it was like, as Bob alluded to, I mean, just really nasty things about somebody online and say, hey, this guy ripped me off, he's a horse's patoot, he's a sociopath, he's a this, he's a that. If you do that, and then that person files a dissolution, a bankruptcy, whatever procedure, and you're given notice by a federal court that, okay, here's your chance. You say this guy is horrible and he's done all these nasty things to you, file your, call this person, file your documents, whatever. You don't do that, or you don't sue that person, you just say all that nasty stuff. God forgive me, if you do that, you're a coward. I mean, what kind of person is that? If you have the ability to say nasty things, but you won't follow up on it, even in a simple way like that, I don't know. I mean, God bless them. I truly, in my heart, forgive these folks, but it's like, it's hard for me to imagine conducting myself like that. I've made lots of mistakes in my life, but being vindictive and cowardly like that, no. Why does that go on these days? Why are we living in this cancel culture world where, you go on Twitter, and I know this is a little bit off point, but it's the same sort of behavior, and you just see people pouncing on other people, and you think, do they know them? Do they know anything about them? Do they know, or are they just pouncing? This mob mentality that we're all living through now scares the hell out of me. I don't know about you, but it's frightening. And having lived through some of this, I go, geez, people have some, have at least some basic decency.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not what we would naturally consider, but I remember my days studying with Tony Robbins and Chloe Madonis, and they talked about that. This comes from Milton Erickson's work, that there are 6 basic human needs that all of us are trying to get met at any given time. And the one that's kind of in the middle is love and connection. And it's a driving need that all of us are continuing to look for. And yet what social media does is provide so much. You want to talk about social distancing, it provides so much social distancing that I don't really have to have a one-on-one conversation and experience you as the divine person you are. I can just say whatever I want, and then somehow my ego believes that I'm absolved of any responsibility, or that I've stated my mind and I'm going to feel better. Well, the truth is, you don't feel better when you're just spewing opinions out into the world. It's when we have the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations and have that connection that we really have the opportunity to really understand. Another one of my people that I think made a great difference in our family's life and was someone who once said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So in social media, Twitter, Facebook, all of these channels, you're not really invited to a true conversation. It's just everyone's putting their opinions, and Facebook has become the therapist chair for those who just want to have some type of cathartic conversation, I guess. So again, not to make it wrong or not to judge it, but just to be aware. And I think we have the opportunity to just have more connected conversations, and our ego mind doesn't want us to have those, because it is the undoing of the ego mania is when we can really have connected conversations, that opportunities for healing, opportunities for reparations, and real change and evolution of us as a species can occur. So
I agree. Again, my particular example is, very minor in the world, obviously, but it's a big deal to me, and it's a shame that it happened. I've addressed it in the ways that I needed to address it in terms of taking care of my company legally. But, I need to make sure that I make the statement that, look, here's what happened, and offer forgiveness to anyone who said those things. But, here's the other side of that. Like I said at first, life goes on. And while we do have to address negative things, if you wallow in that, you miss a lot. I don't want to miss anymore. I have too many positive things going on right now to wallow in all of that. That said, this needed to be done. People needed to hear from me, know what happened, and then people can make their own judgments. But again, it's pretty simple. If you say nasty things about anyone, me, anyone else, if you put that out there, and then you have an opportunity to step up and to say to an authority, hey, this person is bad, he did this, and you put that out there, and then that person in authority says, nope, he didn't do anything wrong, then where are you? You going to retract all that? No, doesn't work that way, right? So, I just wish everyone the best. I just want to go on creating, doing, helping. That's what I'm all about. I'm not looking for in any way, shape, or form retribution or anything else. Just, let's all be real about it and move on to something that's positive, that helps people.
well, and this is the Work With Me podcast. And one of the things that the reason we created this podcast was so that employers, employees, humans could know how to elevate their lives and their businesses. And one of the things that you've brought up is that let's have open, inclusive conversation and dialogue. Everything is always figure outable. There's always a solution when we can look at it from either this is a lesson or a blessing. And attack is never justified. It's not going to help the situation. And it sounds like, Wid, you're willing to have conversation as guided by your legal counsel that can help you move forward and move on. It's the attacks and the barb without a process that is healing. That's not what's going to be helpful, and not what you have time for or what you're interested in. And I think that's important for employees to learn, for employers to learn, is that in our everyday lives, there can be a process for open, honest communication where when we have that, there's no need to attack. Everything is figure outable. There is a solution for everything where everyone can create blessings in their lives, winning opportunities. It sounds like that's kind of where you're at and what you're more interested in than digging up the follies of the past or what didn't go well, or, that we can't control what happened in the past. We can be formidable influences for how we look at the future going forward. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I've addressed these things factually. I've addressed these things in a federal court. I'm not going to debate anybody about facts that are self-evident. I
Right.
mean, if I'm just not going to do that, but I'm also, like I said, I'm not going to wallow in it. I know he wouldn't mind me discussing this. I'm not putting him out there in any way, but it's well known that I don't know why would even call me a friend, but a dear friend of mine, Father Themistocles Adamopoulos, who runs the Orthodox mission in Sierra Leone, West Africa. I'm working on his biography. I'm working on another book with him. And when all this came out, he listened to me and he understood that. And I said, hey, Father, I understand if you don't want anything to do with me. And he goes, just the opposite. You have to put your name in anything we do. I offered to take that off. And, that counsel of his to be calm, to stay focused on things that help people, it really helps. Tearing each other apart for whatever reason, tearing each other apart online or spreading rumors or gossip about people, or even if you're upset and doing that sort of thing, it doesn't work out for the accuser in the end. It really doesn't.
Right.
A rational discussion of things helps, but sometimes you're just, I guess, beyond that. I don't know. I want to move on. I want to write books. I want to help people. I want to do creative projects. So that's what I'm focused on.
Now, what are you currently working on, or what do you have coming out in the future you'd like to talk about?
Okay, like I said, with Father Themistocles, this guy, anyone should look at him because he's just the guy on the beer commercial who says he's the world's most interesting man. No, it's Father. When he was a youngster in Australia, he was in a band that at the time, this is the early 60s, when the Beatles came out, that was as big as the Beatles. I mean, they were huge, called the Flies. He was a devout Marxist atheist. He went through this major life transformation and became one of the top biblical scholars on the planet. After he achieved that pinnacle, doctorates from Princeton, Brown, masters from Harvard. I mean, the guy speaks 10 languages. He said, I'm not called to do this. I'm called to serve the poor. So first he did that in Nigeria. Then he went to the worst place in the world at the time, Sierra Leone, and started a ministry. I greatly admire this guy. We're going to have his biography done, God willing, by the end of the year. And then he has another book on all of this stuff and the culture that's going on that I want to put out there. He's just really a super, super guy. I have other projects that I can't really discuss due to NDAs that I'm working on, but creatively and professionally, I'm going to continue to be out there. And like I said, while this nasty stuff online is not good, and hopefully we can address it, it doesn't slow me down, and it doesn't deter anyone who knows me. So
now, what do you say to young writers who come to you and say, Wid, I want to write, I want to publish, I want to do what you're doing? What's the best advice you give right now?
Great. That's a very good question and one I love answering. First and foremost, and I want anyone listening to this to take it to heart, don't let anybody tell you what to write about or how to write. What I mean by that is we all have to use good grammar, good syntax, punctuation, etc., of course. But don't let anyone tell you to write in this style or that style, or that you should write about this topic or that topic. You write about what you're passionate about, period. Get that out there. It's important. These days with Amazon changing the whole world a decade ago, and now anyone can publish a book, it's important for people, I think, to express themselves creatively. And they should do that. It's therapeutic, and it's a wonderful thing to do. Write about what you know. Write about what you care about. Another person I don't mind putting out there because she knows my situation, a lovely woman that lives in Chicago by the name of Creola Thomas. She wrote a book called The Adventures of Hood Shorties. And it's an African American time travel book based in Chicago. These kids find a portal and travel in time. It's absolutely wonderful. Creola's a special ed teacher. She works hard for every dime. And I'm working with her to try and, have her voice heard. People like that, helping people like that get heard is why I get up in the morning. That is it. I could give you a bunch more examples, but that's a really good one. Helping people like Creola say what she wants to say and get it out there. It's a very good book. Again, The Adventures of Hood Shorties, Creola Thomas. Anyone that likes YA fiction, your kids can read it. It's great stuff. Things like that just get me going.
Now, Wid Bastian's been our guest on the Work With Me podcast. It has been a roller coaster interview of emotion, so it's only fitting that I end our interview by putting you on a stranded island. We do this with everybody that comes on with us. So I'm putting you on this stranded island, and you can only choose one thing. So what is the one food or cuisine you would eat every day the rest of your life?
Super simple, pizza.
It seems to be the popular answer nowadays. You, as a published author, what book, one book?
I know it sounds cliche, but it'd have to be the Bible.
One movie.
Gosh, that's just a tough one because I love films so much. Dr. Strangelove.
One TV show or series.
True Detective, HBO.
And either one album or an artist who's going to sing with you for the rest of your life. What's it going to be?
White Album, Beatles.
Fantastic. Wid, where can people reach out to you, whether it be a project they're interested in or getting more information where to get your books?
You can reach out to me right now. Things are kind of in flux website-wise, but all emails are fine. wtbwriter@gmail.com. Drop me a note. I'll get back with you. Other things are happening in terms of websites and all of that as I get reorganized here, but reach out to me. wtbwriter@gmail.com.
Well, we appreciate your candor. We knew these were some tough questions, and since you were able to clear the air, I'm going to end the show today by playing the video you sent me where you get to pretty much lay it on the line and clear your reputation, and we can't thank you enough for your great interview today.
Hey, thanks to you both. You guys have a good rest of your day. God bless.
And as promised, here is Wid and his video explaining it all.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I've been off Facebook and social media for a while. I hope everyone is okay. I know that between the COVID pandemic and the political turmoil, times are tough. I kept in touch with some of you privately this year, but I know that many of my friends are concerned about my status. Elaine and I are fine. Her kids are fine, doing very well, actually. I'm working from home every day, doing my thing, traveling less than before simply because it's hard to travel these days given the restrictions. As many of you already know, in late 2019, I had to dissolve my former company, Genius Media. There were only two reasons why this happened. First, the company was over-leveraged with the wrong creditors, New York-based lenders with sky-high interest rates. Second, my film agent disappeared, which prevented me from completing multiple deals in the fourth quarter of 2019. Genius Media's demise was my fault. I chose to borrow money from the wrong people, and I chose to continue working with an agent when I should have fired him. That said, a few people, less than 10 or so out of hundreds of people I've worked with over the years, got very upset, some to the point of lunacy, over the dissolution of Genius Media. In early 2020, horrible and completely untrue things were posted about me and my company. Now's the time to set the record straight. During the liquidation process, which ran from January through the end of April 2020, any person who felt that they had been wronged or ripped off in any way had the opportunity to present their case to the trustee. All of the people who said such nasty things about me were noticed and told that they had this opportunity. Few people did so, but I was not entitled to know how many or exactly who, and I was grilled, and rightly so, about my contracts and business relationships. I disclosed every document in my possession and went through the process. The outcome of this inquiry was that all of my debts were discharged. Not one, let me emphasize this, not one, not a single person filed any adversary motion or proceeding. That means, from a legal point of view, none of the people who made such horrible statements about me have any legal standing to sue me for anything. They had their chance. It's over. When you say nasty things about someone online, calling a person every foul name imaginable, and accuse him of cheating you or ripping you off, and then when the time comes to step up, to file a lawsuit or at least an objection to a debt discharge, and you don't do that? What does that say about you? It says you're a coward. It says that you're not telling the truth. You can post awful and horrible things, but in the end, the truth is really nothing to you. It means nothing. When you repost these lies that you know nothing about firsthand, it's even worse. Why do that other than to just try and hurt someone for your own purposes? I'm not going to name names here. Check it out for yourself if you care to. It's over. I have only the deepest of regrets and sympathy for the few people who were hurt, really hurt, by the demise of Genius Media. I was hurt too. Years of work went down the drain. Dreams were lost or at least derailed. That said, there is a huge difference between making bad business decisions and trusting the wrong agent and ripping people off. I did not rip anyone off, period, full stop. If anyone says otherwise, they are lying to you. Remember this too. In 2019 alone, I made over 30 authors USA Today best-selling writers. None of them paid a dime more than $750 to achieve that goal. Over the years, 2014 through 2019, I helped authors become successful and was responsible for promoting ebooks that sold tens of thousands of copies. Somehow all that got forgotten because a few mean, stupid people chose to spread nonsense and have truths and lies about me. Given my past, most of you know that 25 years ago, I had an investment company that failed, and I paid the price. All of this is amplified. I'm not going to revisit stuff from the 90s. I've never denied my past to anyone. Not once, not ever. If you don't want to have anything to do with me personally or professionally because of my past, I get it. That's okay. But it is wrong to use things from people's past to assume that they have done something wrong today. Facts matter. Due process matters. Fairness matters. Okay? End of speech. You will not hear from me again about any of this. I will not debate anyone about these facts. I will not respond to any negative comments. Enough. We all have far better things to do. My life is full and happy. I have plenty of clients to keep me busy. I'm writing 2 books and working on a variety of other projects. The vast majority of the people I've worked with over the years saw through this nonsense immediately. I don't lack for work because people believe in me and know my skills. I wish anyone and everyone nothing but the best. I truly forgive anyone who said nasty things about me without them even asking for forgiveness. God bless you. Have a good one. Stay in touch. Bye.
If you would like to be a guest on this podcast, get more information at workwithmepodcast.com. Original music and score by Mark Roos. This broadcast has been produced and engineered by Bob Stei. The Work With Me Podcast. Copyright 2020, Roos Advisors.